found us. What about this idea?
Gotta listen to this show. Why?
Because it's about the hearts and minds of entrepreneurs.
Oh, nailed it.
I didn't even look at the wall.
Nailed it.
I didn't even look at
All
the
right,
wall.
listen, honestly, this is a show. It's different than other shows about entrepreneurship.
It's real. It's real. Real stories.
Is it?
We tend to talk very real.
I love
And
it.
so do our guests. So come have fun with us. Welcome to the show.
Oh, that was it. Like we jumped right in.
We jumped right in.
Yeah,
Welcome to
good.
the What About This Idea show.
What about this idea? We're going to change the subtitle.
I know you say that.
No, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I got Troy working on it.
That's good.
Because now we've got this whole new thing we do.
Well,
Can't wait.
this whole world evolves.
Yep,
As
things
we know.
change.
As things change.
Yeah, yada, yada. We got...
This is going great so far, I think. we're
It's
killing
exactly how it goes.
This is how it goes. This is how
All
it
right.
goes.
So we don't have, just in case people are wondering, we don't have anyone paying us yet to do this show. We have Itasca Studios. We're very thankful for the space
Yes, we
got
are.
there. DevineFox Production. This is our production company. We do this out of this space. It's really fun. Everyone who's come here and done shows with us loves it. So I'm happy for that. But we're about to have sponsors, and then when we get them, then we'll say, okay, this show is brought to you by so and so.
That's right.
But that slot is open because no one's actually paid
Well, it
for
might be filled by the time this airs.
Could be. We're working on it.
And so you might be wondering that you just heard an advertisement for something. We're saying there
I
aren't
doubt
any.
it. I mean,
Okay.
it could happen, but
It
I'm
could
just saying.
happen.
And here we have, potential advertisers.
Maybe
beer on our-
the person who owns
Should we turn it
the
around so
company
they can't see
that is in
Jeez,
the
this
beer.
is delicious.
I'm so surprised that people
Wow.
aren't just falling over themselves to give you all money.
I know, well,
Where?
You know?
part of the problem, Brad, is that we haven't actually asked anyone.
Yeah,
So I think that
You just kind of passive aggressively say it at
it's
the
just
beginning of each
that's what we
podcast.
say.
Upper
We say it
Midwestern, of course.
like, come on, just someone show
Oh,
up.
I wish
you
someone would give
know.
us some money.
That's
Wouldn't
right.
that be nice?
Actually, to be fair, I think in order to prove your worth and stuff on a podcast, you got to put out 10 episodes, 15 episodes before you start asking people for money. You can do it. There are other ways to do this. But I think a show like this, we had to show people just how polished and fantastic.
I think polish might be an
That's a bad choice of word.
maybe like an oxymoron or something.
All right.
You know,
Sounds good.
maybe. But fun, I would say. Fun, interesting,
Different.
different.
Yeah.
Yes.
Different is right. So Brad.
Yes.
Who are you?
I'm
Yeah.
so ready for all the questions.
Brad Fletcher, right?
That's me. Yes, sir.
It's like Lord Fletcher. You know,
In fact, there are quite a few Lord
are you
Fletchers
related
in
to
my-
a Lord?
in my heritage, yeah.
Is there?
Really?
Yeah.
Of what of what ethnic,
English.
background? English.
So
Not like Scottish.
The
Lord
Fletchers are English.
I thought they were Scottish. Isn't that
There
right?
are Scottish Fletchers,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I could talk about this for a long time, but I don't think that's the point of this podcast. But
no, it's totally the point of the
basically every
I don't.
almost every Scottish clan at some point, because Fletcher means arrow maker. So as they would fight amongst themselves, some of them would shed their clan name in favor of like a different name so that people wouldn't find them out and murder them. So a lot of Fletchers come from a bunch of different Scottish clans because they're like, oh, I don't want to be the Bells. I don't want to be the McGregors. I don't want to be, these people that are being persecuted. So I'm going to take on the name of the thing that I do.
Interesting.
I mean, how is it I would not have put together the fact that like fletchings on arrows,
Yeah.
that a Fletcher like that
Kinda
came
cool,
from
right?
that? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but
I
specifically,
just learned that.
Yeah.
the lords I mentioned are all English, the ones that I'm related to.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot, if you go across England, there's a lot of little pubs called Lord Fletcher.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know what that means. Like maybe traditionally in English culture, I'm totally making this up, but
This
who
is all
knows?
bullshit.
Could be true.
That's good, yeah.
In that maybe the arrow makers really needed to, because they only really made their money in arrow wartime. maybe.
Yeah. Oh, I like this. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
then
they
they're like,
needed a
at
side
peacetime,
gig.
what else do we? Yeah, just,
They needed a bar.
yeah, brewing, arrow making.
Brewing,
it's like
arrow-
it's a natural fit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they started pubs
They started pubs.
because you couldn't just sit and fletch arrows all day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
although in England, they really were in wartime, like the majority of their history. But,
Well, they liked that stuff.
you know, during peacetime, what else is there to do for an arrow maker?
But the specific
Make darts?
Fletchers that
For pubs?
make up my whatever they call
Yeah.
lineage or heritage or ancestry or whatever, they got pretty sick of England pretty quick. Like they literally Mayflower Americans.
Oh.
So I don't know if they didn't like pubs or if they didn't like arrows, but they were like, we're done with this. So they came
Someone
over.
from my family was on the Mayflower too. We found this out a while back. Yeah,
Nice.
I feel like he fell off the boat when they got to land. I think he lived, but he fell overboard. Something like this. Anyway, yes.
That explains a lot.
Nice.
Someone in my
Yeah.
family looked, was like, we are part of the Mayflower Society. Did you know that? Like, no, I had no idea. I know. And it was like whoever it was kind of the butt of many jokes for some reason. But anyway, but you come
Well, it's interesting
you come
because
from Lords.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
who actually knows?
Right.
who knows, really?
Do you ever like write letters to someone with the last name Fletcher that you may not be related to, and you're like, still waiting on that inheritance?
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
When I'm not either making arrows or running a pub, that's
Yeah.
pretty much the third thing that I do.
That is right.
Yeah.
I mean,
See?
you have to have a backup plan.
Yeah. And that's like some people buy lottery tickets every day, and I just write letters
Right.
to the lords.
To the Lords.
To the Lord
The Lord
Fletchers, yeah.
Fletchers
Yeah.
across the UK.
I am hopeful for you that works out
Same.
someday. Yeah.
Yeah. My other backup
hands up.
plan is kind of my plan D is this company I'm running now. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. What about this idea?
There's something.
It's the show. It's not about
not
the
about-
nonsense that we've been talking about.
We always seem to go into like some heritage or DNA conversation
Why
at
not?
first, don't we?
Why not?
We do.
Well, if we're throwing it out there, my mother is actually from Guatemala, so it's not English at all. So it's a very different mix of two different things. So,
Interesting.
I like that though.
Interesting. Now
I
I,
think the
see
world's
it.
a better
I see
place.
it, you know.
Yeah?
A little bit of the curly hair and the
nice.
blue eyes.
Yeah, there's a lot of Brit in you too, though.
Yeah, it's a good mix, you know. Crooked teeth and curly hair. It's like,
At least you got most of them in there. Oh, the old tropes about Brits. and their
Super
teeth.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at us.
Nice.
I like it.
so great.
Yeah.
Drinking German beer.
Yeah, right here, made in America, though.
Right here in Minneapolis.
I do like the melting pottiness of the world. Pottiness? I don't know if that's the right way to say that. I don't
feel
know.
like that's not
the
a word.
dad in me coming out.
It's probably better than potity.
Pottity.
The melting potity.
Potism.
Yeah, melting potanin.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, it's not going to work.
Nope, we're done with that.
Yeah.
Brad, tell us about this plan D of yours.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, plan A, B, and C are okay, but what about this
Yeah.
plan D that
That's
you
smart
are working
to
on?
move it back into that
I
direction.
definitely feel like that's a good idea.
I'm thinking so many generations didn't succeed with those other three plans. That
Yeah.
It's time to do something else.
But you have to honor your heritage.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
and
you can always hold out hope. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe you're the one. Maybe you're the chosen one that they've written about.
Maybe. Like the Dune movie, that guy who like the 10,000 years of trying to make him this false messiah guy.
Right.
That could be me.
And then along he came. And there it was.
Yeah.
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 I
I could
see
be
any
that
reason
equivalent
not- make
in the
man-
Fletcher world, you know. So
Yeah, don't make the man give up on his dreams.
yeah, seriously.
I mean, so
Come on.
yeah.
okay, you're right. I don't know how I ended up being the person to ask you to give up on your dreams, but I still want to hear about plan D.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, I guess
Tell us
if
more.
we have to, I'll tell you about plan.
Or we don't have to.
no, I'm actually I'm really good with this because I invited Brad in for a reason.
Yes.
Plan D is kind of an interesting one. So
Same. I also think it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting. Well, to set the stage, it is basically so when you think renewable energy, right?
Okay, well, let's get our heads in that space.
Yep.
So renewable.
That's what we're talking
energy.
about.
We went
renewable energy.
from utter nonsense to renewable energy.
Yes.
Which is a heavy topic. So here we are.
So usually when people think renewable energy, they think one of two things. I'm curious if you're thinking of the same things that I'm thinking of.
Like what's this as a
solar?
Solar and
wind.
Yeah, those are the two. Yeah. So the big ones right now are solar power
Ace that test.
and wind power, and we harness the power of the moon in lunar power.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So wind, solar, lunar, and that's where we operate. So lunar power
crazy.
is essentially the way that the moon pulls on the oceans, right? Pulls it forward, pulls it back in the ocean tides. And we set up a device in the ocean that as the moon pulls it one way, it generates energy, electricity. And then as it pulls back the other way, it generates electricity again. That's the basics of how it works.
So
I feel like you blew her mind.
my mind is blown. Like, so it is tide energy.
Yes.
But you're going to the source and saying what makes the tide is the moon.
So it's a little different than when I say tidal energy, anyone who is familiar with the term, they think a handful of different things, but usually a tidal plant is built in such a way that it's essentially like a dam, but they put it in the ocean.
Yeah.
It's like a dam in the ocean. And the way that we do it, it's in some ways very similar to that, but it's also like foundationally completely different, which is why we present it the way that we do present it, because it's not a dam. What does a dam do? It holds back water, and then releases it on a schedule
through a turbine that generates
exactly.
energy.
So we also have a barrier, and we also release water through the barrier to generate energy, but we don't impound the water, which is very, very different. We don't sequester the water. We don't hold the water back.
Interesting. So you allow the water to come in or hold it back with just mechanisms on the device itself.
Yes.
Yes.
So we have what we call the retiming cycle, which instead of, so up until now, the way that tidal energy has worked has been one of two things. The first one is like a dam, right? Where they have these gates in like a big, huge, like 8-lane highway wide barrage dam in the ocean.
I'm envisioning like if this was through a mountain, it would be like an 8-lane wide tunnel. So they have to build walls, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, and we also build walls. I'll get that in a second. Yeah.
You're doing some of the same stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so it's similar in a lot of ways, but with one specific difference. So since like the 1920s, they started looking into this type of stuff, like surveying around the world. Where are the tides going to work? Planning out all these different projects. They built the first one in '68 in France, and they dammed a river. It's called the Laurence River, and it went across the whole river, and it was about an 8-lane highway wide. Exactly that, because that's what they have on top of it is a big old highway.
Sure.
And what they would do is they would close the gates on it. It's called sluice gates.
So after the tide comes in, presumably, they close the gates.
So before the tide comes in, so let's start at low tide. Okay. They close the gates. Tide in the ocean rises. They open the gates. It fills up the basin, and then they close the gates again.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yep.
And then the ocean goes back out.
But they're not collecting any energy on its way in.
Not on its way in. In fact, a lot of these don't even have the gates closed on the way in. They just close it at the top and then let the water go out, and then they open it and they only generate energy as it goes out.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's what I would envision. Yes.
And that's how these have all been built so far. There's 3 in the world, actually. There's one in France, there's one in South Korea, and there's one in Canada that's actually been closed. And I'll tell you why in a second.
Yeah, and we're not gonna try and, well, you can do what you want. We're not going to try and sound too smart. Like, I don't want to say, yes, I understand if I truly don't understand. Yeah,
that's fair.
Some of it makes sense to me so far, though. But they can only, so you've got this pool, it fills up, and you're not collecting any energy on the way in, even though there's a rush of water coming through, presumably. But on the way out, they're opening the gates enough through the turbines, I assume, to generate the power.
Because they're thinking about it like a dam.
Yeah.
right?
It sounds like a
and
dam.
in a dam, the river only goes one way.
One way.
Right.
So you're not going to, even though sometimes salmon will go up, you can't really generate energy from salmon.
Right.
Not that I know.
I mean, well, you can eat them.
Somebody might figure it out.
But I personally generate salmon.
Yeah.
Salmon energy is good.
Protein, yeah, great. It's great.
Salmon energy.
So it fills up, they close the gates, it empties on the outside, and then they generate energy that goes
Yeah, right.
The problem is that the water on the inside of this thing doesn't actually ever get as low as it would have gotten if the dam weren't there. Does that make sense?
No.
So like in a river dam, behind the dam is what? A huge reservoir.
Correct.
Of some kind.
Yep.
That's what makes it work.
Yep.
So when you think about tidal energy like a dam, the same kind of thing happens. Where the water, if the dam weren't there, it would rise and fall to a certain level along the shore.
Yeah.
And if the dam is there, then it might rise to the same level, but it won't go all the way down.
Right.
It doesn't go down to zero.
Exactly.
Because there's a natural basin of some sort.
Yep, there's a basin there, and also because of the time it takes to get through the turbines and everything, like
Sure.
by the time the water outside has gotten all the way as low as it's going to get, it's still a little bit higher on the inside, and then it starts to raise up again on
Right.
the outside before it gets all the way out on the inside.
But that would be just sort of a natural inefficiency that you would have to account for, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was their thinking of like, it's not that big a deal. We're not 100% efficient anyway. But what they found in studying these plants that were built like in the 60s through the 80s was that actually it is a big deal. Because like, for example, when the snow runoff goes into the ocean, all these minerals are getting carried into the ocean as they always do.
Yep.
But when our dam is there and the waters aren't getting where they would have been naturally, all this sediment is building up
Of course.
behind this dam.
Which is the
right?
same problem you have with a regular reservoir dam.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But specifically in the ocean, it is messing with the water quality in a big way.
I bet it
and
is.
it's eliminating various species of fish.
I'm sure it
And
is.
it's called the intertidal zone of like the things that live in between high and low tide. There's a whole ecosystem, very fragile ecosystem that lives there.
And with a wealth of critters.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
critters
a
and
lot of
plants and
stuff that
bacteria
lives
and
there.
algae and a whole bunch of different things. And if you mess with that, it's going to just wreak havoc.
So this
Right.
is why Canada closed this.
This is why Canada closed it. Exactly.
And where was it in Canada?
It was in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia. That makes sense because
Yeah.
their seafood life up there is
They got a lot of ocean.
Absolutely. Well, and they actually, that area, so between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, it's called the Bay of Fundy. Biggest tides in the whole world are right there.
Yeah.
I get it.
So they built that plant. Hey, we're going to generate a lot of electricity. This is awesome. They were generating a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
Did a study, and wow, 70% of the species of fish that were here are now gone. Mm-hmm. And the
How
sedimentation and the hydrology and so many other things.
And were they? Did they build this barrier across some opening to the entirety of the bay?
No.
Okay, so just a small-ish.
Yeah, so it's one little spot. It's called Annapolis Royal, and it's a little inlet that kind of leads up into a river, and they dammed the front of that inlet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And not to say that inlet isn't important, right?
Right.
But we've been dismantling dam projects now recently across the world or America especially, and that's
Right.
good because every little bit affects things that you don't downstream literally that you don't know of.
And in a river, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And in the ocean, it's a much bigger deal.
Is it?
Because there are so many more species in there.
Tell that to the salmon.
Yeah.
Just kidding. I'm just saying. No, but it's a big
if-
deal in
if-
all places.
If
isn't
you're,
it?
it is for sure.
Yeah.
But let's say, so if you're a salmon, a migrating salmon, you're going into the saltwater during a part of the year, and then
Yeah.
you're going back up the freshwater.
Yep.
Before you even make it to that river, the entire ecosystem in that transition has been messed up.
Right.
If that tidal
Yeah, well, you
dam
can't
is
get
there.
the food that you're normally get in there and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
okay, so we've
Exactly.
established the problem,
So this
right?
is yes, this is the way that it used to be.
I like the minutia of it. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
but
It's-
this
it's
is
really
your product
interesting.
solves the problem, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
And there are some more problems.
Let's move on to what he did.
did. The second big problem, and this
Fair
one we can
enough.
get through very quickly, is that it was really expensive.
Yeah.
Because you'd imagine a huge 8-lane highway wide bridge dam that blocks off this thing is going to be very expensive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like the one in South Korea, they built it just into an existing seawall. So they just like essentially poked some holes in it and put turbines, and it was still ridiculously expensive to set up. So really expensive and wreaks havoc on the ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right.
Yay humans.
In the last,
Surprise.
Yeah, no kidding.
I would say the last 10 to 15 years, more like the last 10, but especially the last 5, people have started to recognize again, hey, there's a lot of power here. We could power a third of the world with the energy moving back and forth on the tides every day, which is pretty awesome. But we're not going to do it that old way because that way sucks. It's going to ruin all the things that we talked about. It's going to cost us a lot of money. So they started doing what's called tidal current technology, which is, the water moving back and forth on the seabed.
Right.
If you just, kind of like you would a wind turbine, if you just throw a turbine on the bottom of the seafloor, it's going to catch a lot of the energy as the water moves back and forth.
Yep.
And that's great. And there's a lot of startups and entrepreneurs working in that space. And I think it's awesome. The problem is, though, the amount of energy you can generate is a pittance.
Pretty limited.
Yeah, it's like if you imagine I've got this 5-gallon bucket of water and I'm trying to dump it into something and retain all the water, right? If I have, let's say, a large funnel, and that would be like a dam, then I can catch all the water and control it all into wherever I'm trying to get it to go.
Right.
If I don't have that funnel, and let's say I've got like a little nail polish container, I'm trying to dump it in there. Some of it's going to get in there.
A feminine aspect. That's good.
I was just trying to think of something that was small, that had a small opening,
yeah.
but
Well, thank you.
yeah. An empty nail polish container, just to clarify. Like some water is going to get in there, but not very much.
You also have the issue too of moving electricity. You only can move it so far, so you can't go way out into the current and into maybe some major current in the water because you can't. You can only move electricity so far.
Right.
Right.
Like, have you seen Finding Nemo?
I definitely have.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who hasn't? I hope
Yeah.
whoever
It's
sees
our
this, I hope has seen it.
entrepreneurial. One of our entrepreneurial sayings is "just keep swimming."
Yeah. Yeah. True.
Right.
Just keep swimming.
Well, they in Finding Nemo, they have like that huge current that the turtles live on.
Yeah.
My guess is that someday somebody will figure out, hey, can we just put like some type of a turbine just in
Just
the
to
middle
go
of that
with them.
current?
Yeah.
But right now we can't.
Yeah.
I don't know how.
We'd probably lose it.
Probably lose it. I probably would kill the turtles, so we don't want that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, a turbine that's just chopping the crap out of everything that swims past it, through it, or whatever. And I mean, every time we come up with these energy solutions, like the ocean is notoriously hard on equipment and stuff too. Like, throwing stuff down there in the saltwater environment, like how long do they last?
And then even if it were, invulnerable to the salt environment, you still got to build all those underwater cables to send the electricity back to wherever it is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't lean away from the.
Oh, you do whatever you want. I mean, this is our show is.
We're really buttoned
Or I
up
could
here.
lean in and then lean back out.
Can stay right exactly 6 inches from the microphone.
I won't move again. I apologize.
It is what it is. We're okay. We're okay. Who knows what we do on this show? Yeah.
So it's gone in those two directions. The old way was damaging and expensive. So basically the global community said, don't do that anymore, but let's try this other way, which is great. Doesn't really hurt the fish, doesn't really mess with the water quality, but then the whole value prop of, hey, we're going to reverse climate change with the amount of renewable energy we can generate goes out the window because you lose most of the energy doing it that way.
Right.
So what we have done, now we're finally getting to your question.
We did it. We're getting to what you do. I'm like, God, this is depressing. Okay, so
If Sam asks one more question, I'm going to jump across the table,
everything we try fails.
strangle him. Okay.
There we go.
What we have done, and I say we because I am now running this company that is doing this, but my co-founder, he's been working on this since like 1998. He's really the genius behind this whole design, this whole system. He's a physicist. He's an inventor. He's amazing. So I'm gonna keep saying we, as if I had anything to do with the engineering side of it.
You're the business guy.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That's just as important.
It's true.
I
true.
mean, you needed each other.
Exactly.
Right.
I agree.
Fair.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, you would. He's like, it's all my idea.
This is a 50-50 for sure. Well, what we have done is created a design which still controls the flow of the water. So imagine like you're dumping that gallon bucket into a
You're
funnel
not losing
still.
as much of the
Right,
potential.
Right. But it's done in such a way, and I can get into all the minutia if you'd like,
doubt
but it's done in such a way that it doesn't mess with the sedimentation. It doesn't get trapped up behind it. It doesn't kill the fish. And it also preserves the water levels in that intertidal zone. So essentially, it's a barrier, but it's not a dam, because the water inside of the barrier is happening just the same as it would have outside the barrier, except that, back to what I said, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes ago, the retiming cycle.
14 or 20,
25 minutes ago, who knows? We are simply retiming the tides inside of the basin, but we're not messing with them. It's just happening slightly later than it would have, and the differential in time makes it so that we can generate energy as the water moves back and forth.
Super interesting. So, are you in a prototyping stage, or do you have some operating?
We do not have any operating.
And I'm excited. We're at the beginning of this. We'll be listening to this 5 years from now, and it'll be going.
Oh, and we'll be the ones who are like,
we
brought him on.
Brad.
we had the two geniuses on there. I think this is pretty much 50% our idea.
50% because he was on our podcast.
It doesn't
in the
matter. They
beginning.
started it way before we came along.
And we'll understand like 0.2%.
I know.
How did you get hooked up with this brilliant physicist?
You know, funny you should ask. When I was a teenager, when I was 14, I one day came home from middle school, I think, right?
Yeah, we'll
that's
say
not high
middle
school.
school.
We'll say middle school, yeah.
You might have been in. You might have been.
No, I think I was in
Ninth grade.
eighth grade.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, middle school. Yeah, but I do remember being 14. I don't remember what grade I was in. I come home one day, and there's this random man in my living room. And I'm like, who is
How
this guy?
all good stories start.
I mean,
I came home one day and there was this random man in my living room.
And he's
so much wrong. It's like I'm reaching over for a button. Censorship button.
what's the what?
Oh shit! Technical
Never mind.
difficulties. I guess we went offline there. Sorry.
No.
There's like a hand signal for. Anyway, I won't,
I
won't make it just in case.
It's all good.
No signals.
I'm assuming there's a brilliant physicist
Yes.
sitting
Yeah.
on your couch.
So there's this random man on my living room couch, and he was meeting with my dad about something else. I don't know what.
Dad, a randomly smart physicist.
At the time, he was working for a senator.
Okay.
And so this random guy at my house was like, "Hey, I want to pitch
People want
the senator's
access.
office
Yep.
on some of this grant funding and
I
stuff."
get it. Okay, that
And I
makes
don't
sense.
know exactly what the project was. I haven't
Yeah.
looked into it. But he and I got to talking while he was waiting for my dad. I don't know what he was doing. But we got to talking, and he's like, "Hey, by the way, guess what else I'm working on? I invented this tidal energy system where we can." I had never heard of it. I didn't know what tidal energy was.
Did he? I mean, is it fair to say he invented the theory of it because it hasn't yet even been put into practice? Like, we certain this is going to work?
Ooh. I will give that a very thorough answer, but the short one is yes.
Okay, good. And I don't want to get bogged down in the details, but I think because the show is about entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah.
There is something that happens where we have this idea, and I've had to passionately argue for some of my old ideas that I still think are going to work, right? And we all do this. There are some things that you theorize or you invent in your mind in some way that you just know need to exist in the world, and then you just keep pushing it as if it's like, and if you don't, it's dead. It's complete. Someone else will come along later and do something like it, but it's
exactly.
dead. So he's sitting there. This is how long ago?
This was 20-something years ago.
20-something years ago, and he's
Give or
like,
take a few, I don't know.
he's like, I got a couple of things. I got plan A is. We won't get into plan A, B, and C.
Yeah, whatever he was
hubs and
talking
fletching
about with my
arrows
dad
and
at the
shit.
time.
He's got
yeah.
his own A, B, and C, but he's like, he sees you 20-some years ago, and he's like, let me tell you about this other one.
It's just conversational. He's like,
He
yeah.
said, you know what he said? What about this idea?
Yeah.
Boom.
Bam. We're out.
And that was the intro. Now we
And
can
mic
start the
drop.
show.
Let's start the show. Let's start it for real. No, I think that's really interesting. So someone
fast forward 20 years. So that idea has stuck with me ever since. Not necessarily from like a protect the planet because of fossil fuels, but just like this is so cool.
Well, we have to
Right.
do something.
Right.
I mean, whether I'm not an anti nor pro fossil fuel person, I'm sort
Sure.
of we'll have to figure something out that isn't this, because those resources aren't going to last forever, and we need new energy sources. That's just flat out truth, I think.
My views have completely morphed since I was 14. I didn't think that it was real back then, and now I do.
You didn't think what was real?
The whole like global warming, all that. I was like, that's not real. That's what I thought at the time.
Yeah, I mean, people are
you were
entitled.
14. You're 14.
You know,
Well,
yeah.
there's a lot of people out there who still don't
Yeah.
believe it, and I mean, I'm not gonna. What are you gonna do? Like these are beliefs.
I don't think too many people can argue with climate change that we're warming up. I mean, that you can't get around that science. But I think the argument is what's causing it, right? So
Sure.
there's in my mind, there's no argument.
No, mine
we're
either.
causing it, but
Us
in my mind,
yes, I kind of
Yeah,
said
the
that.
three of us.
But
I mean, I
either
see
way,
that as being
causing
the
it.
just
likely
dependence. I mean, you can argue to any belief system, dependence on fossil fuels is not good necessarily or sustainable going forward. So no matter what your opinion is,
Right.
no matter what you think,
They aren't going to be.
I'm telling you, I know what I think. But no matter what you think, you can find an argument for doing something other than fossil.
we have to find alternatives.
The interesting thing, so this is what I spend all my day reading about and thinking about and posting about, so I have a lot of thoughts about this. But like you take, for example, a developing nation, right? Somewhere that a large percentage of their population is impoverished, that type of thing, right? And you're trying to help them develop out of that, right? If I took a barrel of some size of gasoline to send it over there to power a diesel generator to give them electricity, that barrel has, I don't know the exact numbers, but significantly orders of magnitude more potential energy than a battery of the same size, right? So when we're talking about, we're trying to not only transition off of fossil fuels and also like the finite resources that are going to run out and also help the planet with the climate change, but we also have to take into account like, why did fossil fuels get so big? Because there's a lot of value. It's great if I could say to someone, hey, you live in a developing nation, let me put solar panels everywhere. That's not probably going to solve their problem. So it's a matter of can we create the hybrid solutions that are all working together so that the things that can only be done or can be done most efficiently with fossil fuels, we can use them for that. And everything else we can do with everything else. That's the way that I look at it. I don't think
and
that
so
there's
how
a
did
version.
you hook up with this guy to start a business?
I get you changing it. No, interesting stuff. Yes, we can't get into the minutiae of that, but yes, it's interesting
Fair.
stuff. Yes.
So I'll condense the 20 years of story into maybe 30 seconds here, but
were you pen pals or something?
Pen pals.
I've started a few different companies so far in my career, and every time there was a chance to do something new, this is the thing that came to mind. And I would entertain it for a few days or sometimes a few weeks, but at the end of whatever period, and I ended up doing something else because I was actually always kind of afraid of it. I thought, there are people who are smarter than me, and there are people who are more plugged into politics than I am, people who know the legality, people who know the whole process. And I'll give you the kind of the inciting incident here. I have a 6-year-old son, and he's a big fan of animals. It's like his favorite thing: animals, dragons, Power Rangers,
Love it.
trucks. 6-year-old boy.
Power Rangers are still a thing?
It's another thing.
like
They've revamped it.
It's new.
Yeah, Netflix came out with a new Power Rangers thing.
I didn't know
and
that.
he loves it. It's awesome. Anyway, he loves animals. There's a podcast that he listens to Not this one, unfortunately.
I mean, this one was built for that little guy.
Yeah.
I tell you.
It would be bored.
I'll definitely do some indoctrinating after this, but
No.
bored.
he's listening to a podcast about animals, and there was a specific episode about polar bears.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how, hey, polar bears do this, they eat this, whatever, yada, yada, yada. And then...
Given the chance.
Exactly. And then their habitat is getting destroyed by climate change, right? True. And it's receding more every year, and it doesn't go out as far out into the ice every winter. And so these animals are dying out and all these things. And my son was distraught because those are his favorite animals. You know, we were at the Como Zoo and he saw this gigantic polar bear head and thought it was the coolest thing ever. On the live polar bear, not the...
Not on the wall.
Anyway.
Okay.
Zoo, yeah.
So he and I were sitting there and he's like, oh, isn't that so sad? We were talking about it and I got to talk to him about like, oh yeah, climate change, it's all these things, like trying to give him a 6-year-old version of what's going on with the planet.
Yeah.
And he was like, Dad, don't you know how to fix that? And I was like, oh no, I don't know how to. No, he's like, no, your ocean thing. And I was like,
He's brilliant.
because we've talked about this over the years because it's been in my head for so long and I think it's so cool. And just
Over the years, he's only 6.
He's 6. I mean, like when I say we, I mean like me and my family and my
Right.
friends. Like
He's
this is something
picking
that's
it
come
up.
up. But he's very perceptive. And
Obviously.
I honestly, in an instant, like all of those fears just disappeared. I've like
You're like, I can't even put together, like I wrestled with and had to return a fucking bookshelf from IKEA. I'm not sure I can fix the climate problem, kid. Like,
yeah. Well, and
you know, I mean, there's like
So
there's things that are out of my grasp. I
It's
get
true.
it.
Yeah.
I get it. You took it seriously, and you.
I can't fix it by myself.
No, but you can't not do something, right?
Exactly. That's the thing. Like instantly I was like, you know, it doesn't matter who's smarter. It doesn't matter who is more plugged in. Like I know that there's something that I can do.
Yep.
And so I have to. So I that's when I decided I was going to go full time on this. And it ended up happening like a couple months later. But I looked up that physicist random guy who was in my living room and I was like, wanted to chat with him. He and I connected over LinkedIn.
And did you say,
we jumped
I
on
met
the
you
phone.
when I was 14 in the living room of my father?
He remembers my dad, and in fact, he randomly, I had no idea, but he actually knows my grandfather and my great grandfather.
Wow.
Which he told me when on our first
Fletchers
call, I was like,
or
"This
the
is so
other side?
cool." Fletchers, yeah, he knows 4 generations of Fletchers, which I think is one of the coolest things. I don't know anybody else who knows 4 generations of Fletchers. But anyway, we started talking. I was like, "Hey, your idea, so cool. I feel compelled to work on this. You know, have you made any new developments since then?" And so he and I just set up some regular calls.
Did
we were just
he
chatting.
remember your initial?
Yeah.
Having met you.
I don't think he remembered me. No, he didn't remember me. But he remembers my dad, and he remembers coming over to our house, and there were kids there. So, but he doesn't remember
so
me
cute,
specifically.
No, but but you do. I mean, that's important. You know,
Yeah.
you remember that interaction, and it planted some sort of seed in you.
Yeah.
So how did you convince him? Like,
so,
what,
well, here's the
did you
interesting
say?
part. So he's retired.
Yeah.
now. And we got to talking and like different ideas that he's had and different, upgrades and things to the designs that he's done since then. And I was talking about like, oh, these are some ideas that I have as far as like commercializing this. And about after I'd say 3 months of just kind of off the cuff chatting over the phone, we decided, you know what? We need to do this. We were on the phone. And I said, hey, I have a proposal for you. Let me be the CEO of this company. You'll be the CTO. And we'll go do this. And he was like, yeah, let me think about it. And then he sent me an email like 15 minutes after we got off the phone. I was like, okay, let's do it.
That's
No,
all.
did you have a background? Did you have a background in starting businesses?
Starting businesses, yes.
Yeah.
But in energy businesses, no, not at all. I am a follower of the space. And I would say a very apathetic activist. Like I post things, but I don't like march.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Wow. That's
So it's like the lamest type of activist to be, but that's what I've been.
well, it's better than nothing. It's
That's
better
true.
than having no voice.
And
But
at
now
least you're
here's
not- you're
should I
honest?
my theory about power and love?
Yeah, and then we got to take a little break.
Okay, and then then we can dive in.
Okay.
Yeah.
But power and love, right?
Yeah.
Activism is the love. Power is what you have for power. So decision making or money or resources.
Okay.
Activism. Martin Luther King made this speech.
Right,
I
yeah,
did it
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Martin Luther King made this speech, and he talked about how activism without power is anemic because all you have is voice. You have no power. You are just like the mosquito, right? Buzzing around your ear. But all power without love or activism is oppressive, right?
Yeah.
So what he talks about is this balance between power and love. So you have to have the activism. You have to encourage people to be activists, but you also have to find power. And that's kind of what you did, right?
Yeah.
You found power so that you can balance that with the activism.
You know what's so funny? That those two words put into words, something I've been thinking about for a long time, but I didn't know how to say it. There's a book that I love called Radical Candor, and I wish I knew the author's name, so I could mention her name. But it's basically the idea that to be an effective leader, you have to balance, caring personally, and also challenging directly.
Yeah.
You can't be just a challenger, or else you're an asshole and nobody likes you. But being just a challenger is being better for a leader than being just a carer, because someone who just cares doesn't get anything done.
That's right. It's as anemic as Martin Luther King says.
So it's
the book
power
is
and
called-
love. It's exactly the same idea, just in a different setting.
Exactly. So Adam Kane wrote that book, and he quoted Martin Luther King because he went and did scenario planning around the world, and he brought that into the conversation.
Radical
in each
Candor?
of those. No, Power and
Power
Love.
and Love.
Oh, okay.
Name of the book.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love that.
You didn't realize how cool you were until you came on What About This Idea?
That's true.
Yes, we have definitely highlighted
We
that.
have highlighted his coolness.
Yes, brought it
Okay,
to
we're
the
taking-
surface.
Starting with
Is
the
it time
arrows
for a
and
break
now to
already?
power and
It's
love.
time for a break.
I was
have, like,
hoping we'd get,
I
even
have, like,
deeper
6
into the
buttons.
minutia of details.
I don't think you're being honest when you
Oh,
say that.
okay,
I think
okay.
that's sarcasm.
Okay.
That's what I'm.
And this is largely my fault because I love talking about the minutia, and I'm trying to reel it in. Something I'm working on. So
I know you are not. You do not need to reel it in. I was
No,
just
you
teasing.
don't. We can steer you to what we hope to get out of it. There is a lot to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
thank goodness.
It's fine. Yeah.
And the impact is amazing.
Yeah.
So no, you have done everything correctly. Nothing wrong.
All right.
that is what I've been wanting to hear
It's Sam
from my
I blame.
parents for the last 30-something years.
It's way better to blame me for it. All right, we're on that note.
On that note,
We're taking
let's take a little breaky
Okay.
poo.
Yep. I'm going to push buttons.
Push this one.
You push that one. You're so very
It's pushed.
importante.
Yeah, one of 3, and I got one. So.
Do you speak Spanish?
Yeah.
Do your mom spoke Spanish to you as you grew up? Yeah.
Well, kind of. Her parents don't speak English at all. So yeah.
So when you wanted to talk to your grandparents, you had to speak to them in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
Lovely. So do they live down in Guatemala or do they live here?
They actually just moved back there like 6 months ago.
Really?
They were living in my parents' house for a while.
Love that.
But yeah, they just moved back. Because my grandfather's getting a little old, and he said he wants to die in his home country. So, yeah.
Well, and it's different than it was when they left. It was, it was. I mean, they left because of upheaval. Assuming.
I don't know exactly when her parents left. My mom came to the U.S. when she was 18 to go to school. And then her sisters followed. She was one of the first. She's not the oldest, but she was the first to come here. But then I don't know when her parents came.
And how did she meet this Fletcher? Lord Fletcher. How did she meet Lord Fletcher?
They actually met in Guatemala.
Ancestry.
Crazy enough. In Guatemala. Yeah, he was down there for like some humanitarian work or something.
So they met before she came up when she was 18?
Yeah, and when she moved up
How
here,
much older is he?
Like 3 years.
Oh,
yeah.
okay, all right.
That's perfect.
So he's like 21. Yeah, it's like the exact right age,
Yeah.
He comes, or she decides to come to school, and
Ooh, that is good.
her dad calls my dad because they had met and worked together like in Guatemala.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, I'm sending 2 daughters up to go to school. Could you like meet them and help them kind of get their feet under them? And then the rest is history. Now they're married.
Oh my gosh, I
Yeah.
love this. And are the 2 other sisters living here now too, or do they?
So my mom actually comes from a family of 10 kids.
My mom does too.
Oh yeah?
What is she? Is she oldest, youngest?
She's
middle?
the 5th, so
Fifth,
she's right in the
exactly.
middle. And so all of her family except one sister and her parents live in Utah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and her parents and one sister live in Guatemala, but the rest of them all live in Utah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Utah's beautiful.
Yeah, she came to Idaho to go to school, what used to be called Rick's College.
In Boise?
I don't know, actually.
I don't know where Rick's College is.
It doesn't exist anymore. They changed the name. It's a different school now.
Is it the one where we're recording, aren't we?
You are, but I'm not going to release anything.
Okay.
Oh.
Is it? Well, there was just that stabbing in.
I don't know.
Like last year?
Yeah, last year.
Where the 4 kids died? That was
Yeah, he went to a college house and killed like
four
out of
kids.
6 of the roommates.
Jeez. It might have been
They
that
caught
school. I have no idea. Huh.
They caught him.
I
They
didn't hear
did
about
catch
that.
him.
That
You know, he
wasn't
was a criminal. He was like a PhD student in criminal.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Justice, yeah.
Jeez.
Criminology
Well,
or something.
my dad was living in Massachusetts. He flew out to Idaho to meet my mom, and then they started dating, a long distance relationship, Massachusetts to Idaho, and then they got married. She moved to Massachusetts, and then he got a job in Utah, and then the rest of her family came up from Guatemala to Utah. So
And then did you grow up in Utah?
yeah, so I was born in Massachusetts, and then
Okay.
we lived in Maine for a little while, and then Utah. That's where I
Interesting.
went to high school,
And then when did you move here?
like 3 years ago.
Oh, you just barely moved
Yeah, not
here.
long.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a partner?
Yes,
I'm looking at your.
Yeah.
Yes. The one that you produced children with?
that's the one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you meet your wife?
In high school.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's so cute.
Yeah, we were in a musical together.
Were you really? Which one?
7 Brides for 7 Brothers.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
That's how we
it's
met.
Utah, obviously.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but sure.
It all has to be very tame and family oriented.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, it's Utah.
Yeah, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers.
It's not like
Funny, actually, element to the story. So I grew up playing sports, but my sophomore year of high school, I broke my neck playing football.
neck.
Yeah. And then I had to quit sports altogether. They were like, you could go into swimming. And I said, I don't want to go into swimming. So I ended up going into musical theater instead because I didn't have anything else to do. And then I met my wife. And so, yeah, it was all,
Face, look at the eyes.
it was all meant to be.
You light up when you talk about your wife. I love that.
She's a great gal.
Is she from here?
She's from Utah.
So why did you move here, for a job or something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved here to work for Techstars.
Techstars.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Shh.
Yeah.
We could talk about this when we get
Are
up.
we going to do this?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Anthony.
Anthony Kerchunk. Oh, wow. You really did it.
And we're back
I'm
from our
guessing-
little
Our break?
break. We had a great
one.
break and we started talking about important stuff. And then I thought, no way. We
No
don't
way.
do that off air.
No.
So here we are back with
Okay,
our
we're
friend
back.
Brad.
We're back. I don't remember exactly where we left off.
I don't either, but,
But,
now I'm
we
curious.
We don't have to go back to
We don't have to go back to where we were. I'm curious then. I'm so curious. Okay,
Okay.
we just touched on, and that's why I wanted to come back on air, that so you grew up in Utah. You were born in Massachusetts.
Yep.
So I'm going to catch everybody up on the break talk. And
Right.
you moved to Utah, grew up in Utah, broke your neck playing football.
Who doesn't? Yeah.
Obviously, the
Yeah.
normal stuff in life.
Yeah, yeah.
And then decided to be a musical, go into musicals,
Theater, yeah. Yep.
theater. I love this. And then met your wife and then moved here for what?
Techstars.
And what's Techstars?
We all know what tech.
I know what Techstars.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we certainly know of it. Yeah. What you
Yeah,
came
so
here
they're,
to work for them?
To work for them, yes.
Okay. Not to-
so they're
not a cohort.
Yeah, they're a startup accelerator, as you know, as we all know, of course. And I came here to work for them. I owned a gym before moving here, and then COVID happened, and we were like, this
It's tenuous.
is terrible. So we got to find something else because even though like things were COVID was wrapping up. This was like fall of 2021, and my wife and I were like, let's get out of here. Like we're tired of this place, and I'm tired of this gym, and let's just start something new completely. So
It's a good time for it. Your kids
Yeah.
are young and
yeah, so I found the job with Techstars. I've been involved in and around startups for a long time, but I wanted to see like the other side of working with like startup support. So we came here to take a job with Techstars, and then one of the portfolio companies that came through, I just absolutely loved. So they and I were chatting after the program, because it's a 3-month accelerator program, right?
Yep.
They and I were chatting, and we said, hey, can I like be an advisor to your company? And then they went and raised a round of funding, and I was like, hey, let me put some money in, because I really love what you're doing. And then shortly after, they had some full-time needs, and I was like, actually, screw Techstars. I like them, but like, let me jump on
Techstars for the experience.
Exactly.
I am ready to grow.
Yes, that's a much better. Yes, I do not. Let me say, I like Techstars. I enjoyed my experience.
I think Techstars
I did
should
not
be a
mean to say
sponsor.
anything negative about that. That was not my intention.
No, screw
Really loved the
Techstars.
group that I worked with.
No, didn't
That was
say,
like the devil and the angel, the on the shoulders sort of
and
thing.
he didn't say screw you, Texas. This is what, like, something I'd have an argument with my kids about. Like, he said it so flippantly, like, screw Techstars, I'm doing this other thing.
Yeah.
That is
Right.
not a directed at, that is not actually a negative.
No negative feeling towards
it was-
Techstars whatsoever. It's
was
a
just-
great program. I loved working for them. Made some really awesome connections.
Yeah.
And specifically anyway, yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
But then I joined the other group. It's a health insurance startup that they're still kicking, doing really well. And then there came a time where it's like, it made sense for us to part ways right around the time that I was deciding, hey, this is what I need to do.
Yeah, 'cause
this renewable energy thing.
Pushed you into it. Your kid prodded you like,
Yeah,
hey, Dad,
so-
I thought you said you were going to fix that with your ocean thing.
Yeah. It's like, come on,
and
the
this-
polar bears, Dad. Come on.
It's actually one of those things too, in that you suddenly realize why you just did what you did, right? Because now you're perfectly poised. You understand, you've been part of the curriculum of an accelerator program. You understand that. You've been part of a startup. You understand that. You understand the funding. You understand the conversation around that. And then your son says, Dad, why don't you fix the problem?
Come on, Dad. Quit sitting
And you
on your butt.
realize
Yeah.
that you could actually make a dent in that problem. Yeah. I think that's pretty awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It almost feels like, have y'all seen Indiana Jones?
Yeah. Are you?
Of course.
Did we grow up on it when you were not yet alive? Yes.
the third one, The Last Crusade, when he's like trying to go into the place to get the elixir of life to save his dad.
Yep.
And he's in that huge chasm, and it's like, I don't remember the exact words. It's like a step of faith or something.
Not a leap of faith, but yes.
Something like that.
Yeah, it's along those lines, yeah.
And he steps out into the chasm, and then the bridge is there, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I, looking back, have felt like the last 4 years have been of my life. It's like I see this chasm, and I don't know exactly where I'm trying to go, but I can see on the other side there's an opening, and we just kind of take one step, and it's like, oh, there's a bridge. And you take another step, it's like, oh, the bridge is still there. It's just the way is kind of appearing as you go along. So we
What a
know.
great analogy. I love that.
Well, it's not far. It's not far from the truth, except if we go back to the movie,
Once
if you
in a
remember,
while, the bridge is not quite there.
if you remember in the movie,
Pulling
there
it
were a
up.
few people who just fell into the chasm.
Right.
You know, like
They did not have the
because
right vision in mind.
because they weren't
Exactly.
pure of heart or whatever.
Or
like
something,
their
That's right.
motivation wasn't correct.
Exactly.
So they just fell right in the chasm, and that's
Yeah.
also entrepreneurial.
That's true. And it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because the analogy can go a step further, because I think I mentioned that I was kind of afraid of this idea for a long time. And I think part of the reason was because something else I mentioned a little bit ago was that I wasn't really bought into the whole global warming thing.
Yeah,
I didn't really
Was that
believe
sort of
it.
a cultural.
Yeah,
cultural
I think
thing?
so. Yeah.
I feel like we'll just go just for a second on the whole global warming thing. I promise not too long. But I feel like people's opinions about the validity or non-validity of the arguments around global warming, whether you believe it or not, and all the rest of this stuff, they're so much dependent. It's such a big, confusing problem that it's dependent upon just the people you're around. Like if people
it's a lot of
around you are saying it's not real, you're like, I think it's not real, until you maybe you look into it a little bit for yourself and you're like, well,
Well, it's like that social psychology thing where, when you see a crime, like they've done those experiments where you see a crime, and if you're alone and you see someone being like assaulted or something, you will run and try and protect them. But if you're in a group of people that don't go to protect that person, you will tend not to protect that person because you stay with the group.
Of that, that lady who got stabbed to death in front of a huge apartment complex, and everybody in the complex was like,
"Oh, yeah,
like in the
50s or
we did hear, we heard it, we saw her, but no one did anything."
Yes.
I think that, similar.
Yeah.
But I'd never looked into it, and it just like, maybe it was the people I was around. I don't know exactly what caused it, but I didn't really think, it's like, oh, this is being overhyped. It's not real. But then before.
No judgment.
Sometime in between the different times that I was looking to start something new, I don't know exactly when it was in that time, but sometime in there, I really looked into climate change and figured out this is real and this is what's causing it. And there's so much studies to. So we don't need to get into that specifically. But the time
it is hard to look at the like machine that is the humans of the world churning through resources and just doing stuff. And looking at all that, and it's hard once you look at that to say, I don't think we're having any real effect on the planet. Like, I think we're having plenty of effect.
Well, there are people that believe the Earth is flat too, so we really don't.
That's right, and deeply held beliefs are not something that you can change in people. Like you can't. They can
even
change
facts.
them.
Even facts don't change it.
No, that's their beliefs. So.
And so at some point, I shed that specific belief and donned a new belief.
Yeah.
Which is that there is something that can be done to stop the human element of this global catastrophe. And then the next time I approached this lunar energy idea from the ocean tides, it was, I need to do this. Like I got to jump in with both feet and, figure out whatever needs to be figured out. And
all right.
Yeah.
So where are you at? And I'm so excited. Where are you at now with this commercialization of this product? I mean, I know it takes a long time, the whole manufacturing, the whole acceptance, the whole proving that you have solved the problem that this Canadian area closed, right? Like, I know that all takes time, but I'm excited to see where you're at.
Yeah, great question. So the way that I describe it is we are about as certain as you can be that it's going to work on paper. And what I mean by that, so like I said, my co-founder came up with the idea initially in like 1998, and he's had a whole bunch of iterations of ideas and a whole bunch of patents. And then in the past, this was before I was involved, he actually took it to basically all the world experts of all the different things, the different elements of what he had been working on. So for example, Hurricane Katrina happened, right? And then they built this seawall around New Orleans so that would never happen again, right? Yeah. He went to the group that built that seawall and said, hey, look at my design. It's a civil engineering group. And he's like, hey, like pick it apart, poke holes in it, tell me where it's not going to work because I want to make this work. And they came back after a thorough review and said, this is awesome.
We think it'll work.
It will. And they wrote like a review saying, like an official review from their group saying, this is going to work. It's constructible. We've actually estimated all the costs here, what the costs look like. So the economics make sense. It will hold back the water, you say, will hold back. He also took it to GE, a branch of GE that was in Canada, and said, hey, look at this. And they came back with a review that said, this will generate the power that you say it will generate, and it will go in both directions, just like you say it will. And he also took it to a group of environmental scientists and said, hey, look at this, poke holes in it, give me feedback. And they came back with a review and they said, this is going to eliminate those environmental problems that you said it will eliminate. So as far as when I say we're as certain as we can be, like we've literally had the best people in the world look at every element of this and say, yes, from our in-depth, thorough analysis, this is going to work the way that you say it's going to work. So the next step, as far as we are in commercializing right now, there is a...
I want to hear that because almost no entrepreneur can tell you that they've taken their idea and put it in front of a whole bunch of experts and been told it's going to work. Like no one does that. So what's the barrier? Why, if all of these people are saying this is going to work, where is the freaking hang up?
So Two things. One is money, but I think the money follows the certainty anyway. And so I'm not actually, we're raising money right now, but it's a lot of effort. But I do believe that the people who believe this, and we'll see it the way that we're going to see it.
Money?
Not right now. And we can talk more about the money in a second, but the big thing,
we don't have to.
if you want to, we totally can. But the big thing is, let's say you're a government of a large country and you see that, hey, in the past, this certain type of thing has created these certain types of really bad problems.
Yeah.
So we're going to make a lot of laws to make sure that those problems don't happen again.
Right.
And so the biggest barrier to entry here is a bunch of regulatory checkboxes to say, yes, we're going to conduct studies on all the endangered species in the area. We're going to conduct studies on all the plant life in the area. Yeah. We're going to conduct bathymetry studies and geotechnical studies and stratigraphy studies. And I had no idea what those words meant a few months ago, but not that it matters. But there's a whole bunch of things we have to just basically check the box and say,
of course.
Yeah, we've had an independent expert verify that none of those bad problems are going to happen again. We're not going to kill the fish. We're not going to mess with them.
And no one wants to put their name to stuff like that because, I mean, we... In the past, when there were less regulations, we did things and then we ended up with really bad problems, right?
Yeah.
Now we have a lot of regulations and we can't do new things because we're afraid of ending up with really bad problems, even though if the new thing is maybe out to fix things, it's like it's tough.
Yeah.
I'm imagining this prototype, like at the Science Museum where they have like the title, like... You know what I'm talking about?
I like that visual.
I know, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
So that's actually very similar to something that we're working on. So we're working on two things in tandem. One of them is an actual site in the ocean where we're going to build a real one of these and connect it to the grid and sell electricity, right?
Well, that might help.
Yeah. the process.
I mean, that's this is like entrepreneur.
What, like on Lake Minnetonka or something?
No, just get something.
I wish, but there's not an ocean in Minnetonka. So.
Oh, that's true.
You would think there was with the boats
like Lake Superior. There's the waves
Lake
there.
Superior does have tides, but it's not enough to be able to generate the amount of electricity that would make the costs make sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So are you trying to work in Canada?
Maine, actually.
Maine.
We have a site up in Maine that we're working on some preliminary permits, but the regulatory process is going to take anywhere between 18 to like 30 something months.
Oh God.
And so
say years.
So did I.
No.
Oh, I really did. I'm like, oh my God, how are we ever going to get there?
So we've kicked that off. And in the meantime, we are also pursuing building a scale model prototype, which is essentially the size of like, let's say half a football field at the biggest, maybe a little bit smaller. We're working with a couple different groups that can help us actually build this, but they're going to model the specific site that we have in Maine on a very, very small scale and say, okay, this is the construction method. These are how the turbines work. This is as the water goes in and out, and conduct all those tests to say like it's all gonna actually work.
You have to get that done. I mean, you have to have some proof of concept that people can look at and say, okay, well, this is starting to work.
And we initially thought that we didn't need to do that. And that was a mistake. We could have saved a few months thinking about that way, because each of the elements of this are in operation somewhere in the world. Like the specific construction method that we can employ because of this retiming cycle that I described, is already being used to build like offshore oil rigs, for example. Right. And the types of turbines that we're talking about are in use in the Three Gorges Dam, which is the biggest dam in the world. It's in China. Mm-hmm. And the pumping cycle is being used, like the pumping mechanisms are being used in what's called pumped storage to basically build a battery out of water, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
So it's like, in our minds, my co-founder and I were thinking, this is all proven technology. It's just the unique combination of it that makes it so great that we've done. So let's just go try to build it directly without having to do this, prototype step, because it's already proven. But we were mistaken. We do need to have like a scale model proof of concept type of thing.
So sometimes we try not just to talk nonsense on the show, and we try and actually teach people a little bit about entrepreneurship. Well, that's one of those things. I think there's a lesson in that I see regularly, which is proximity to your work. Like if you're so deeply embedded in it that you're kind of one of the very few people who understands it well, you look at it and you're like, I don't get it. Why doesn't anyone else understand what I'm trying to do here?
Yeah.
And if you can't prototype it, if you can't show someone the tangible thing that you're trying to provide, if it's just theoretical, it's really tough. That you gotta get. I mean, we've talked about these things on various things that we're doing. You've got to get to the point, boil it down to the point where you can say, here it is, and this is what it's going to cost. Do you want that?
Right.
You know, like,
I feel like the Dutch would be interested in this because they're already trying to hold water back. You know,
they've been doing it forever.
They've been doing it forever.
Those dikes are 15 miles inland now.
I mean, they're amazing. Well, they are because they would be underwater otherwise.
Yes.
Yeah,
And they have an
sense,
enormous amount of wind energy right off the shore. I think that they're the type of country
got
to
any
really
Dutch
involved.
This is Holland, right? That's
Yeah.
where the
Yeah,
Dutch
yeah.
are from? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think that the
Or the
tides,
Netherlands. They got 3 freaking names for that country. But anyway, go ahead.
I don't think the tides are large enough to at least make a pilot project work.
Probably
Deflationary as we go along will obviously drive the costs down. So eventually we can go to places like that. But right now it's so Maine and Canada right above Maine and Alaska are the places that are close by. Also the Gulf of California. Like in Mexico, like that
Right.
little whatever it's called. But there are a bunch of places. Yeah, there are a bunch of places worldwide where. So Argentina is another great place.
Yes.
There's a little inlet in Argentina where the best places tend to be somewhere either north or southern latitude ish.
Like
that
not
has
right at the equator.
Yes,
I mean,
that has like an inlet. So like if it's just the straight side, like the side of California, for example, there's nowhere for the tides to go. It just comes in and then goes back. But if you have like an inlet or of some kind, it pushes the water in such a way that the force is magnified. So when we talk about the UK or France or Spain or Portugal or New Zealand or like Indonesia, Japan, like there are lots of these places where the water is kind of pushed up into an inlet or an alcove of some kind.
Australia.
And those are some huge tides. So those are
Hawaii.
places where the economics make sense.
They do something cool like Hawaii.
I wish. No, funny enough, the tides in Hawaii are not.
They're not?
They're not very large. Well, they come in. They come in and out for sure. But it's when we're talking about specifically when we're talking about energy, right? It's really hard to adopt a new form of energy if it's going to make people's utility bills go up.
Right.
And so if we're talking about where can we build this, there's a lot of places where we could build it. But where can the economics make sense so that it makes sense to actually invest in it, then the places become much smaller to start.
Brilliant.
And then once we have like a working actual commercial scale one of these, we can start to go to those other places because there's a lot of things I'm sure we're going to learn. And there's a lot of things that, people are working on different forms of concrete and new types of turbines and different electrical connections and transmission. And there's so many things that are going to bring the cost of this down. But the first ones have to be in a place where the tides are really high so that it makes sense economically.
Yeah, I mean, even I don't think we should necessarily talk about money unless you want to do a plea for money here, which is fine. But I can imagine this is not like making, like hot pads or something, like you can just crank those out into manufacturing. You can probably do a nice set of them for $50,000, right? But to make this kind of a prototype, to get through all the regulations, to get through, all the power and control, to pay for the time, pay for people to be your advocates, that's a big price tag.
Yeah.
How does your wife feel about this?
Well,
Solid
it's when I started my first business as well, my wife and I were dating, and it was painting. I was just painting houses around my college town, and she was not a fan of not having a steady paycheck.
Right.
And this is while we were dating. This is before we
shared
were
this
married.
in common. I
And-
started out anyway, but yes.
Before we got married, I actually got a different job in insurance, and then we sealed the deal. And then every time, so since then, I did an insurance startup, and then I owned that gym for a little while, and now I'm doing this. And so this is the fourth kind of foray into this. And the conversations we were having when I was trying to decide whether or not to do this are very, very different from the first time, and she would tell me things like, it used to feel scary not knowing what could happen, but now, like, I won't give too many details on this, but there was an incident where the government took all my money. So we woke up one morning and all of our bank accounts were drained. We got it figured out not much longer after that. But she was like, you know what? Like, we were fine. We were okay. And now we know that, if this, she believes in it just as strongly as I do. And like, hey, if we both truly believe in this idea and that eventually it will work. And if we have to go a period of time, we can't get lower than zero. We've already been at zero. So
I mean, that is yet another very strong lesson to learn if you're going to start a new business.
Yeah.
Is, it's not like the sides of the sidewalks or the roads that you're driving on are littered with the corpses of entrepreneurs who failed. If every entrepreneur who failed died as a result of
they're working at bartenders down down the road.
Right. But like,
that's what I would do.
If failure equaled death in starting and bringing a new idea to the world, there'd be a lot of dead people out there.
That is,
right.
That is true.
So it's super extra uncomfortable to watch something fail. I'm sure it was super extra uncomfortable to have your bank accounts, the money pulled from them. But yes, and you mentioned this on a show a long time ago about, like, there is, in America, there is sort of a safety net. Mm-hmm. If you try these ideas, you can declare bankruptcy, you can do a lot of things, and you have some protections from they don't come and just kill you. Yeah. If you fail,
that is a nice,
yeah. It's nice that doesn't happen here, but
unlike the Fletchers of yore,
Yeah, well, you failed, you're dead.
Done.
But
right. I will say, if it wasn't for that level of support, I don't think I could do this level of idea.
No, of course.
The way that, because I mean, starting a painting business is pretty low risk.
Super low risk, and so very low hanging fruit.
Or like a gym, it's a lot different. Of like, hey, if you have a spouse who says, like, I kind of have some reservations about this, but go ahead, then it's not that hard to go ahead. And it's like, oh, it didn't work, let's do something else. But this idea is something that, like, not only can it literally change the world and the direction of the planet, but also it's going to take 15, 20 years to actually get to the mission we're trying to accomplish. And if it wasn't for her coming to me and saying, like, I 100% believe in you now because of what we've been through. And if we have to, like, drive Uber together at night to make this happen, we'll do that. And I could not do it without that level of support. So I'm glad
agree.
You asked.
It's a good question because, I have a husband who has supported me in ups and downs.
I have a wife who supports me too.
Yeah. And so it really does take a team. If they're going into it reluctantly, you need that support because there's going to be downs. Yeah. There's no doubt going to be downs. You're going to have to put some of your money in. You're going to have to ask your dad or ask your mom or, you know what I mean?
Help.
Or pay things
I might
on your
ask my
credit
kids.
card.
They're doing pretty well. Or do a credit card. I mean, it's just, it's one of those things. That's really the essence of this podcast in the sense that there is literally no booklet on how to become an entrepreneur. There are just insights from stories that we have done. And one, I think a lot of times we don't talk about is our family support, our partners, our spouses, right? Yeah. In that, that would almost be like a good, like, workshop for us, like Techstars. Hey, Techstars, we have an idea for you. Bring spouses in, and teach them about what could go wrong or what you're dealing with, or you know what I mean. Like,
my experience has been like if I tried to, like, whether it's family or friends, when you decide that you're going to go on this journey. What they do is they sort of like, let's use an analogy. You're pushing off on the old boat, right? And you're like, you got a bunch of supplies in the boat that you've organized and sorted, but they've helped pay for. You've got like this grand mission that you're going to do. and they're on the shore and you're pushing off and they're like, good luck, man, good luck. And then if you bring them in, like what they don't want to do is hear about it. All the time. Like they do not want you to send like constant messages back like, well, today was really tough. I was out there on the ocean. And they're like, yeah, that's because you chose to do that. I gave you some supplies. Now shut up. I got a life to live. Do you know what I mean?
I gave you some supplies.
Yeah.
I made Sammy's for you. Just
Yes.
stop calling me.
Like,
yeah.
seriously, I don't need to hear more about your troubles on your
Is
journey.
this your subtle way of bringing up the camp again?
No.
It is.
No, it was
You were
not.
talking about
It was an
canoeing.
analogy.
I know how you.
No.
I know how you work.
No, I was not going to bring up. Not this time. No, I just think it's funny to think that like spouses might want to go to a night where you talk about how you could run into trouble with your entrepreneurial journey.
Oh, we should get them together. Yeah.
They would
Actually,
support group
a
would be
support
better.
group.
Yes,
A support
learning
group.
more.
That's a good idea.
I agree. With
Learning
alcohol.
more about how we're going to maybe screw up our lives and theirs in the
Some of those
process.
THC
That's right.
drinks that they have.
Let them whatever they need, right?
Yeah.
I think they should go. They should have some good food.
It's just wine
They
and
should
food.
have the freedom to bitch.
Yes.
And commune with each
Yes,
other.
is your spouse as dumb as mine? Like,
Yeah.
do they think that they're going to
That's
change
exactly
the world?
what they would say.
Yes, mine
Yes.
too. Do
Like,
they
how-
think that they have these big ideas and they want to just do stuff all the time? And all you really want them to do is get a job?
You're right.
And they don't do it?
Right.
Hey, mine too. Let's drink some wine
Let's
and talk.
drink some wine and
Yeah,
talk about
that's
this.
more, I think
Exactly.
that would go over better.
Exactly.
This is a great idea. I
Yeah.
hope Techstars is listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's her name? Oh, gosh. She's got to run this whole thing. The one who... with the Bud Lights rolling out the door as you walk into the bank or whatever.
Oh, Janice.
Janice has got to put this whole thing together. Anyway, it's an
I don't get the
ongoing
reference.
bit.
I apologize.
Ongoing bit.
It's an if you know it, you know it.
I'll have
Yeah.
to go watch all your episodes.
Yeah.
Oh, they're nothing but the best. So I have listen. We have sort of. You are so incredibly passionate about this, and genuinely passionate about it, and you've made a commitment to your child to save the polar bears in a certain way, or at least to
Yep.
do something in your lifetime that could result in that.
Right.
Nothing but respect for that. We'll be done talking about that for now, though. I love your idea. The whole thing was great. Thank you for explaining.
We
all
are
that.
cheerleaders for this.
Cheerleaders. And
What is it? We never even mentioned the name of your company.
Nestar Energy.
Nestar
Oh,
Energy.
Jesus,
yeah.
we didn't.
We
it
didn't.
took 98
So,
minutes of
I know, what a waste.
talking to
Right.
get into. Anyway, we'll put some links.
Yeah.
How do you spell that?
Nestar.
Nestar. There it is.
Nestar.
All right. We in the few remaining moments that we're going to subject our listeners to the show to the show that we produce for them. It's your fault for listening. Do
Maybe
you have
I
any?
won't go back and listen to all the other episodes.
I don't know. I don't
Thinking
know.
it would be torturous.
I don't
to be
know.
honest.
I think.
I know. I've been
Depends on
listening
what-
a little bit, and it's fun.
It depends on what you're into.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of entrepreneur shows out there that are like pretty darn dry, if you ask me. I'm not listening to those. Ours is pretty fun. It's different. It's weird, but it's different. No, it like almost scares me to ask you.
Okay.
Are there any other big ideas sitting in that head of yours?
So we're always ending our shows now.
Now we are.
With
Yeah.
a big idea.
Yeah, I mean,
What about this idea?
What about this idea?
What would be your idea?
are there any other things that you've sat on or something? Just
Yes.
Okay.
But let me know if this is allowed. They're all ideas that relate to the thing I'm already working on.
I mean, if that's what occupies your time, just give us one. Let's hear it.
Okay. Rapid fire. I'm going to give you 3.
Okay.
So we have this tech that generates power from the ocean, right? From
Yeah.
water. But it doesn't have to generate electricity necessarily, because there are a lot of places where there are ocean tides, but there's not people, right? Like the northern coast of Russia, for
Got it.
example.
Yeah, what is it?
So instead of generating electricity, there's a lot of really cool things we could do with this same tech.
What does it generate?
For example, it could be used to generate green hydrogen, which can be shipped around the world a lot easier than shipping electricity across a transmission line.
Okay.
It can be used to desalinate water, which is pretty amazing, I think. Like if we were to put some of these in, say, the Gulf of California, and during the day it's generating power to, power the cities, but during the night there's not that much need for power because it's pretty hot. You don't need to heat the houses. You can desalinate water, and you can send fresh water all over the globe as well.
Wouldn't you be using the energy it produces, though, to then power a plant that's creating hydrogen or creating desalinized water?
So it's the same plant, and the energy is coming from the moon, right?
Yeah.
And it just matters how you harness that energy and what you turn it into.
Right.
So you can turn it into electricity, and that's the kind of the beachhead here.
Yeah.
But it could also become so many other things.
Okay. Right.
You could also so there's a big movement in offshore wind right now. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, of trying to put these huge wind turbines out in the ocean.
That's what the Dutch do.
Yeah, they're cool. I think they're really cool. One of the big problems is that you don't know exactly when the wind's going to blow, so it's not super easy to rely on them. Like they're trying to build one off the shore of New York, and it's like, we're not going to power New York with this, even if there's enough capacity, because we don't know when it's going to blow. But what we could do is take one of these cool tidal plants and put it around, put like 2 reservoirs around an offshore wind plant. And instead of using the offshore wind power to power the city in electricity, you could use it to pump water from one reservoir to the other. And then whenever the wind blows, you pump water, and then the water is released.
This is the battery idea.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. It's a water battery. And we think that there are some strides happening in that arena right now, but that actually might be the direction that we go if things don't work in the direction that we're going right now, because this can be used to back up offshore wind. It can be used to back up floating solar, which is a big thing right now, or they're trying to make it a big thing. So there's so many other implications of what could we do with this awesome tech and this amazing power from the moon. Those are the only things that live in my brain right
that's
now.
good. I get it. You are deeply immersed in and deeply passionate about, and sort of for lack of a better way of saying it, you're sort of consumed by this, right?
That is a good way to say it, actually.
And if you look back through history, precious few things have changed in this world, if not by the hands of those who are deeply consumed by something. It is just a fact. To get something new, most of the ideas that we bring forward, even on our entrepreneurial shows and in our own endeavors, they're really not different. They're just slight variations of some other thing. They're our little version of something that already exists. We're slightly disruptive to a legacy industry of some sort. To get something this big out into the world requires being consumed by
Obsession.
it.
Yeah,
Obsession.
I think so.
Yes.
So just really quickly going back to high school musical theater.
Yeah, do it. Bring it back.
My drama teacher, her name is Mindy Nelson. I hope she hears this. She said something that it's actually not her quote. It's a quote from someone else, but I don't remember who it was from because I just remember it from her. But she would say it to us all the time. She would say, let me just make sure I get this right. Don't doubt that a small group of concerned people can change the world, because it's the only thing that ever has.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I 100% believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get the definition of leadership in my mind is getting groups of people behind an idea to go out and do things that aren't being done.
Yeah.
Like you get somebody like Elon Musk, for example, and you can like him or hate him, but he's really good at getting people to do things. That's what makes him who he is.
And thereby changing deeply entrenched machines that are already, the steamroller just keeps going. But a guy like Elon Musk, and love him or hate him, I don't really care. It's like, well, but he's the original sort of, what about this idea?
Yeah.
Well, he moves on an idea in a powerful way.
Oh,
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And, he can be a little weird. And he's got the clout and money to back his ideas, which most people lack. And in the absence of that, you just keep pushing. Like that's
all he did in the beginning, I'm sure.
Yeah. And we don't, as much as we love the people in our lives who are good to us and do the good things and all, I'm not saying that you're going for fame, but there's a reason they write stories about people who get consumed by and are passionate about things, because that's what it takes to move the needle. It's such a monumental task to move the needle, even just a tiny little bit, that you have to do what you're doing.
That's great. And I'm just imagining your son like working for this company.
Yeah.
Now, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
there's a future.
he's the
There's a future where
originator
you've done
of,
something.
the catalyst of making
And maybe
it.
someday there's like a environmental branch of this company that is saving the polar bears, you know, like
Exactly.
who knows? There's so many things that I imagine this doing, but yeah, that's exactly it, of, you know, people who care, who can buy into this vision of where we're trying to go and where everybody else is trying to go too, but kind of spinning our wheels, you know?
And the greatest amount of gratitude you might ever get for it might be someone walking up behind you when this thing's all done and everyone's taking the credit for all the stuff that you worked, and the originator of this is long gone, and you might get a little pat on the back and a little arm around the shoulder, like, you know, you did a good thing here, and that might be enough.
Yeah.
You know, that's
I think his ultimate cause is for it to happen.
what I'm saying.
Did you come with an idea today?
Oh. Damn it.
I'm not sure if this is
Good
an
question.
idea, but I was inspired
Okay.
this last week.
Oh, I will, after you go, I'll do
You got
mine
one?
real quick. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I had another one.
I was like, oh my
Well,
God.
okay, we can do it.
We got like 12
Who
more
cares?
hours, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
I did the Apple VR demo
Yeah.
this last week, and there was a point in there where I felt like I was going to fall off a cliff, and that.
Oh, yeah, I hate
And
this.
it was different though, in the sense that I was imagining being able to use this in developing countries, in places where people are incarcerated, places where people are wheelchair bound or something like that. Like it's different than an idea, but maybe it's a system to support this, first solving those problems, first being where it helps mental illness and it helps, mental strain and maybe even physical sort of things, like they say, if you have cancer, they sit and they meditate about white blood cells attacking, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was so blown away by where my mind went with the application of this VR.
Like
that
being in it?
Yeah, that I couldn't stop and still can't stop thinking about the applications of it. Right.
Beyond just playing a game.
There was zero games in the VR demo. It was all like you can put it, like I could put it on, you could put it on and like do all your work. Like I could have 3 screens and you could just be working on your screens and you can type and it types right in front of you. And then you can also be immersed in a situation. So in your case, it would be like you're working on your thing and then you immerse yourself into the prototype, right? And you go and you move around the different pieces.
Swimming in
And
the tidal pool.
I just got, this like the Matrix sort of thing, right? Yeah. Or what was the one that Tom Cruise was in years ago?
Minority Report?
Yeah, Minority Report.
Good job.
That it seemed so much closer. It seems so much closer. Now, I know there's a bunch of negative possibilities with this sort of thing, but all I could think about was the positive impact. Yeah.
But
it
you
was
saw
amazing.
some positive in it.
I did. I really did. Like we all talk about meditation and visualization and all that. This could be like a huge aid to all of those things that make us better human beings.
It's kind of like what gets people into, well, I actually don't know this. I was going to say Minecraft, but I've actually never played it, so I don't know why that came to mind. But I think you can create worlds and things like that.
Yeah, well, the world is infinite. My kids play it.
Okay.
And so the world is sort of infinitely big and,
So it's interesting that because visualization, let's say, for example, they say the clearer you can get the image that you want, the more likely that it's going to happen, right? So imagine you create like this dream future, and then every morning you spend 20 minutes like walking around your dream house in this AR, whatever VR
Yes.
setting. And
I think it's huge.
that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, I think it's huge.
Yeah. I mean,
You heard it here, people.
I guess I've largely poo-pooed sort of the creative potential of it because it made me nauseous to be in with a VR headset. Like,
Well, that's the gaming one. It makes me nauseous too.
Yeah.
Like this, you're like,
no, I get it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more possibility in it than I let myself see because because I put it on and it made me sick. I thought it was cool as hell. Don't get me wrong. Like standing in a spot and feeling like I'm standing like, okay, I can't move. I'm frozen because I'm up way too high. And if I take a step, I'll fall. And your brain is saying, no, you're not. You're in a room, but it's also saying, no, you're not. You're up at the top of a building. Like,
I know my kid does that VR thing, and then zombies are coming at him, and I'm like.
that part of it I couldn't quite.
But this is not that experience. If you go do a VR, and Apple, you should sponsor us. But
yes,
if you go do a VR experience,
Sponsor me too.
yeah.
While we're at it.
If you go
Sponsor
do
us
it,
all.
it's a different. There's not a single game in the experience.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's more about productivity. It's more about immersing yourself in a situation. Reminds me of Star Trek. Where do they go? Where do they go to in the
holodeck.
holodeck? Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, that stuff, everything that we've seen, 40, 50, 60 years ago, they were saying, oh, you're going to have little communicators on your chest that blink and stuff. Like, all of this stuff is coming to be real.
right? Exactly.
So, what was your big idea? Was that?
Oh, it was something I was thinking about actually years ago. Not a big idea. It's a small one.
Yeah.
But I have spent time in my life and also talked with people who have spent time like wanting to be an entrepreneur of some kind, but not having an idea. Like, I don't know what I want to work on. I just know I want to work on something and make my way in the world,
Yeah.
And so I was thinking, what if somebody could come up with like kind of like a venture studio?
Yeah.
But instead of like spinning out a bunch of companies, all they do is just come up with ideas and spin out MVPs. And then you can come in and just look through like their marketplace of MVPs and like, hey, I'm an aspiring entrepreneur. Oh, here's a space that I like. And somebody spent a weekend on that MVP. Like it doesn't matter how well developed it is, but you can either purchase it or partner with them on
like
it or
you would
something.
like a photo or a graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I love it.
Because my side of entrepreneurship is I'm not an engineer. I don't know how to code. I've done sales a lot, but I'm actually and I've done finance, like my degree's in finance, but I'm not like a finance guru. Like all of the specialties that people need to have.
Yeah.
I don't have them, right?
I love this.
But
You know what it would be called?
What is it?
What about this idea? That's what it would be called. That's a perfect name for
that
that
is a perfect
software.
name.
That's funny because a developer that I've had working on my stuff for a few years, Roger Ottman. But anyway, Volari Solutions, look up his stuff. It's great. Anyway.
Is he a sponsor?
He could be. I can still mention his name. He's worth mentioning.
He is.
Over the last couple of years, this is something that I see happening right now, is that the cost and effort to build a single idea into, say, a product or a solution of some sort, even 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, in the tech world specifically, but also in the physical world, like you can prototype things for a lot less money than you like 3D printing. There's a company in town, Proto Labs, who'll prototype you something really quick. There's a lot of things that happen. So the cost and effort to get things started has come down to the point where ideas aren't that special.
Yeah.
They haven't been. There's a million ideas and people have them all the time and they're like, oh, what this. But it's that getting from idea to yes, something that you can test somewhere has always been the hurdle. And if you could shorten that a little bit and make it not so scary.
I love this idea because AI could just put a business plan together for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The original idea came from a friend of mine named Dustin McCaffrey, if you ever listen to this. I don't remember how fledged it was when he and I chatted about it, but it keeps coming back to my mind, actually. I hope somebody does
I
it.
think it's just a next 2-3 steps down the road iteration of Venture Studios. It's the same type of concept, just brought into more of a modern era where the venture part of it isn't how hard is it to get us the prototype built. It's actually like, well, the fucking prototype's pretty easy. We can do that now. Now it's get out there and try and work on the rest of what happens when you have a product in a market. Figure out if it can be viable.
I love it. Great idea.
All right.
What's yours?
Mine? I didn't come here thinking about this, so I should put more time and effort into that side of it. But I did have an idea the other day that I saw to fruition today, which was I have a business partner in, kind of an amorphous sort of business relationship where things are moving this way and they're moving that way. And you go into all of these things with the best of intentions. You can't put structure to something that's completely unstructured anyway, right, from day one. So you just move through it, right? But my idea was, what if me and my sole business partner,
Oh my God,
sat down and addressed each other as owners of the business as if we weren't ourselves, like with a different name, so that you could feel free to talk about that side of you, which is the owner of a business that needs to speak about the health and future of the business in a certain way, versus then we interviewed ourselves as employees of the business, so that you could say to you, so that I could come to the business owner, even the business owner side of myself, and say, as an employee, I'm having these problems, and sort of talk to each other in a different way, which it's more about the emotional health of the two people involved and understanding the role of, you have an obligation to the business on the one hand, and you also have an obligation as an employee, and these two things are separated, and you need to be able to put yourself into the mindset of both of those things, and you can't be in both places at once sometimes. Sometimes you have to have a conversation where you're one or the other.
we did do that today.
Yeah.
I'm the business partner.
Oh, yeah, that was this one. That was this
business
one.
partner.
I thought it, it
We did do that today, and I thought it was really it was really good. It was a good role playing thing.
It's a little bit of role playing.
It was, and he warned me I had to step out of my comfort zone, and it was very positive because I could talk to my experience as a business owner, and I could talk to my experience as my contribution to the company. Otherwise, to get the company going, and Sam could do the same thing. I thought that was really good.
Yeah,
Really
did
good.
you? Yeah, I mean, it was a first go at
Now
it.
you just need to put it into virtual reality,
Yeah.
and we could be.
And then we need to power it with the moon.
Yeah.
And then we're good. Bam!
and we'll take over the world.
All right, you two. I think we did it.
We did do it.
Okay. I think we're going to have to leave it there.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. I
was fun.
learned so
Brad,
much. It was
You
super
said it would be fun, and you weren't lying.
Yeah. it was
Yeah,
good.
did you have a good time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it's different.
I cannot wait.
It's unstructured. It's different, but it's a show.
I cannot wait to come back in 5 years and tell you, hey, guess what? Remember that conversation we had?
I can't wait.
We've done it.
I can't wait.
We've changed the world.
I insist that happen.
Yeah.
I insist. I can hardly
Let it be so.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Taking a chance on.
Been a pleasure.
So, all right.
And
We're out.
We out. Don't cry. It's over.
Oh, you did it. You made it to the very end of the show. You know what you can do to help us? What can they do to help us? They can tell their friends how awesome this show is.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
You know what else? And I don't know if people know this or don't know this, but like if you found us and you see us on socials somewhere, just hit repost or share it with your community.
Share, repost, follow. Isn't there a follow option?
Yeah,
of some
follow,
kind?
Subscribe. We're not going to charge you anything.
No.
Just hit the subscribe button.
No,
It's
we
not gonna
just
hurt
need
you.
to create a community around entrepreneurism and how the real shit happens.
I like it. Well, because we're real. You said it in the intro.
Real.
We talk real. No, seriously. Tell your friends. What a great show. Oh my gosh, these people are doing the best work ever. Yeah, right?
That's what you should say.
Yeah.
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 And just come back. Have fun with us. We love this.
We'll have someone, we'll interview someone cool next week too.
Someone completely different.
Yeah, from prison. Thanks.
We always have to have that.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.